It has to be new, usually. If it is not particularly new or timely, then it's something unique, something that not a lot of people have done before. It could be a softer story, but there's like some good color to it. It really depends on what you're doing. Anything at City Hall is usually newsy enough, but there's a variety of ways that you can find out your own news. I know it's difficult as a student because you don't have a lot of contacts, you don't have a lot of networks like a student reporter does. But there are several ways that you can find news. I don't know if you guys have talked about that too much.
Not yet. Why don't you tell us?
Well, I was thinking about it. So there are a couple ways. I'm thinking from a student perspective. So one of the easiest ways is just to comb through social media and make sure you're following the right people. Sometimes Reddit, I don't know if you guys are on Reddit a lot, but they're pretty engaged news people, and will often post things before reporters even know sometimes. They will also poke fun at reporters for not knowing those things. I see lots of things on Reddit that are interesting. One thing, I follow Alison Mah, who is the head of CHEO, the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario, and he tweeted the other day in response to a woman who was complaining about the long wait times in the emergency room at CHEO, just people coughing, it was disgusting, the bathrooms were dirty, and he responded actually, I'm really sorry, this is one of the this is a record terrible year for wait times and whatever. So, that's something, that right there could be a potential news story, right? It's a tweet, but you can take that, you can contact CHEO, you can say hey, I saw this tweet, saw what Alex Munter is saying, I was wondering if I could get, numbers in the past 5 years for what CHEO wait times have been. Why do you think they're so bad this year? He said a particular strain of flu that's really bad. There's a whole story that you can rip off through there. Just for coming through Twitter alone, following, all the people, all the local people you need to. A second way to do things is riffing off of more like a mainstream media news story. So I was talking to our city editor, Drake, today, who also went to Carleton. And we had a story late breaking yesterday. It was about a convicted sex criminal who had been accidentally released by the courts and police. So he had been convicted, he was up for sentencing, and they said it was an administrative error, but they released him, and now he's literally, he could be anywhere. They just screwed up royally. So, things that you guys could do as students when reading that story, it was 300 words, it was late breaking, so we didn't have comment in there from police or the ministry. The next day, you could see that story and be okay, if I contact the ministry, I can at least get comment from them, advance the story forward and say how did something like this happen? This is ridiculous, right? We have a convicted sex criminal out in the wild who's not supposed to actually be out. So you can contact the ministry for that. Another thing that you guys could do, I don't know if you guys have done access to information stuff. It is pretty straightforward. But what you can do is file an ATIP and say I want all of the communications from the ministry to police, the ministry to other ministry officials surrounding from this date to this date, so maybe it's just a 4-day period, about this particular case. Now, ATIPs take a while to get back to you, but it could make for a good story a month from now, 2 months from now, Example, there was chaos behind the scenes after the police accidentally let go of this convicted sex criminal. No one knew what was happening. That's the kind of story that you can get from an ATIP, that you don't need to have any particularly special sources to get into. You as a reporter could do that right now, even. So that's another way you could rip off a mainstream media story. And then I would say the last part, which involves a little more grunt work, and which doesn't always yield stories, is just cold calling people, trying to grow your sources. So, I'm trying to think of like a current example, but Chinese New Year's coming up, and I wanted to do a story for that, and I wasn't sure what kind of story yet. I still don't have a story. But it's coming up next Saturday. I know a girl who's pretty well connected to the Chinese community, and she's out there with it. Like, she has her own Facebook group, they run like mahjong things. So I just emailed her and I said, hey, what's up? Is anything going on? We talked back and forth for a while, and eventually she mentioned to me that she was fired from her job recently because she worked at a nonprofit that deals with giving people Chinese services, and she was so upset by how little they really served Chinese people. Like, it was a lot of French English services with little Chinese spoken, which like defeats the purpose. So she kind of mentioned that in passing, and I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. Like, is there anyone I could talk to about that? She mentioned a young coordinator. So we're trying to move that story forward right now. But that's like a story that I just like literally messaged someone. It's like, hey, is there anything going on? Can you tell me about that? That takes a little more work, but I remember when I was at Carleton, we were like, that was one of the assignments that we had to do, and I did like so bad on it. But that's the kind of work where you're building sources, you're building trust with people, and that sometimes could yield a story, and it still might. So just lack of services for Chinese people in Ottawa or in Chinatown maybe. Anyway, so yeah, those are just like 3 things that I could think of this morning.
Before I see if anyone has a question, I just want to ask you, can you just talk about the transition from being a journalism student to doing this job every day, all day in a newsroom?
Like transition, just that it was like a lot.
What was it like?
What was it like? So what year are you guys in?
First year.
Oh, first year. Wow. It's so long ago. Yeah, it was, I think the most important things you guys will learn, no offense, it's like not the essays you will write, which are like still important, but it is the groundwork that you will do when you actually get to interview people, when you're actually writing a story. And that is like, when I was at Carleton, that is like the one way that I got better, more so than writing like kind of like theoretical things about journalism, was really just like getting on the ground. And I was like really bad. I was like super bad. I had not very much experience. I was pretty green. I got like my few first assignments back, and there were like red marks everywhere, and I was like freaking out because I thought it was terrible. But Alan was a very good professor. Randy Boswell, if you guys ever have him, he was really good when I was there. You just gotta like, don't take it personally, and really like try and listen to the feedback that your professors are giving you for those like stories that you're actually writing. That's what helped me most at Carleton. So when I got into the Citizen, I mean, things were a little different in that like no one wanted me to do like an infographic. I was like, I know how to do this, and it's like nobody wanted that. But really they want to know, do you know what a lead is? Do you know how to structure a story properly? And these are things that you guys can learn right now, even independent of class, which is just consuming news, which sounds like so simple, but it's not something that, we have students coming through here and they're not consuming news. What I used to do as a student was like take a story that I really liked, or like a feature or a story that I found that was really good. I'd print it out and I'd say like, okay, how did they write this lead? And why is this lead so good? Is it because of, the like adverbs they were using? Is it because they phrased it in a particular way? Is it because they kind of hinted at your mystery that was the story that unraveled its fashion? and I broke it down structurally to see why I like the story, and I felt just visually seeing that really helped me appreciate the pace of a story versus just like being told this is the structure of a story, right? So those things kind of helped me for when I got into the Citizen. People really care about style here. I like Canadian press style, so brush up on that. I know it's like really boring stuff that you might be taught, but it is useful because it will save your editor a lot of time and effort, and they'll be grateful for that. You'll have clean copy. And I would say, like, if you guys, you know, eventually, maybe you apprentice in a newsroom for 2 weeks or whatever. I don't know what Carleton would do. But if you have a really good attitude, that kind of like sounds simple, but that's what editors are looking for, is a really like a yes to everything, passionate, enthusiastic, wanting to be there. Those are all really important things. Yeah.
We have time for one or two questions, so let me see if anyone's got a question out here in journalism student land. Questions? How long have you been at the Citizen, Alison?
Almost 6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, there's a question back there, and then there's one over here, so I'll do those two. Yep.
So, what's your biggest news story that you personally have covered?
The biggest news story that you have done.
So mainly I edit stories, like I'm an editor mainly, so I don't write a whole lot of news stories. Maybe the biggest story I've done recently was Ottawa has there's one publicly funded abortion clinic in Ottawa, and it's on Bank Street. And for years they were the target of harassment. Like, protesters would have signs and literally spit on women who were going in to get abortions. It was very disturbing. So eventually the clinic, I knew one of the people who worked at the clinic, and she put me in touch with the manager, the owner of the clinic, and she was like, out of all the Ottawa media, she was only comfortable talking to me. So she came out with her story about how she'd been the target of years of harassment. And also that was just like a friend that I had in the clinic, right? So this wasn't even like a special source that I had. So that's like another way, you know, people in Ottawa, like just make friends and whatever. You can't get stories that way. Anyway, so she was the target of years of harassment. Her clients were. So we wrote that story in a day. It was like front page news. The second day, we had follow-ups to it. Eventually, I wrote a few more stories, and eventually the province put forward this like bubble zone law, which creates like a little barrier around abortion clinics in Ontario where protesters can't go inside that barrier. So that was like really nice to see as a result of some of my reporting, like some action being taken. Yeah.
And there was one over here, and then we'll have to go. Yeah.
I was just wondering, what was like, I guess, the first job when you went to the Citizen that they assigned you, and I guess going up through the ranks?
Yeah, so the very first job that you had at the Citizen, very first thing you were doing.
It was super fun, but it's no longer a thing. I was hired along with my friend Drake, who also went to Carleton, but then dropped out because he got this job as running the Citizen's mobile app, which was geared towards like a younger audience like you guys and like my age too. So we wrote kind of like lighter stories, and I featured like Ottawa Humane Society and like Pets of the Week, which I really enjoyed doing. Actually, the photographer who I paired up with for the Humane Society, his wife worked at the abortion clinic, so that's how I got the story. So those things sometimes just work out like that. But that was my first job, and then
Well, thank you very much. And is there a way for people to follow up with you if they want to email you? Is there a public email that's...
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you can just write it on the board or whatever. My email is amah, so that's AMAH @postmedia.com. Or you can just follow me on Twitter and send me like a DM or something. Alison Mah, ALISONMAH at Twitter. You can just follow me there, like whatever you guys are most comfortable with doing. If you guys have any questions, like just like things you think are just small questions, but I'm happy to answer them. So yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks so much.
See you later.